Before you leave these portals.
Hello.
Hi, this is Hannah Fidler and Matt Riggen with the Liberation Music Collective.
Yes. Thanks for calling in. I was just putting on a song, and it was called Experiment from Jane Stewart, but I'll blend it out and so we could go ahead and put you on the air.
Okay.
You never will decline in spite of Philistine defiance to do what all good scientists do.
Okay. That was Experiment by Jane Stewart off of her Don't Look Back album. And on the air right now, we have a couple of guests, Hannah and Matt.
Hi, Jen.
Hey, how you doing, Steve?
Hi, wonderful. I'm glad that you took time out of your busy schedule and called in.
Very glad to be with you.
Absolutely an honor.
Great, great. I've been listening to your collective, and let's see, it's been a few weeks ago is when we played it, about a half a dozen songs, and we got some really good reactions. Some people were wondering what was that? What is that? You know? So
great. We love to hear that.
Yeah.
That's the desired effect, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I was going to play one of the songs just to kind of like lead into this. And I'm trying to think which one would be good to start it off. I guess track one, but what do you think?
Track one would be fine. Murasaki is often a good lead-in.
Yes, it's the one we choose to open shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's called Murasaki.
Murasaki.
Murasaki Shikibu.
Okay, yeah.
Murasaki, that's right.
That's right. The ancient Japanese poetess.
Right.
You've been doing your reading, Steve.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah.
And just supposed to be a tribute to all the unsung female musicians and artists throughout time.
Right. And, you know, I was really interested in that. I dug out my old textbook that I took history of, Asian art. Trying to remember, it's about 2 inches thick textbook with a lot of pictures. Mm-hmm. And I was actually able to find some of her work in it. And at the time,
it's
I didn't
beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, beautiful! I didn't realize, you know, we didn't really dwell in and talking about what you're speaking about in the song that we're getting ready to listen. But why don't we listen to it, and then you could give a deeper meaning about how and why you wrote it, okay?
Sure, sounds good.
Okay, so here we go. Well, that sounds like a little buzz. Do you hear a buzz there?
It's through an iPhone speaker, so we might not be the best judge of that.
I'm wondering if I should put it in the other CD. I just like to make sure it's as clear as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Let's switch over to CD 1. So you don't hear that buzz now, do you? Oh.
No, sir. Do not hear a buzz.
Oh,
nope.
Okay. So here we go. With Murasaki.
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 Yeah.
I have a hard time with that. And I just actually, my nephew married a young lady who's first generation Japanese, and Yamanaka, Lisa Yamanaka. And I kind of chewed her name up a little bit before, but I've kind of got it down now. Yamanaka.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got it now.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Okay. What a beautiful song.
Thank you.
That was you playing the upright bass, Hannah?
Yes, that was. And Matt was on trumpet.
Matt was on trumpet. Wow.
Yes.
Now,
And the other,
I wanted
the
to
other fellow was
yeah.
The other fellow was for Matt Setzer, alto saxophone, and Sean Weber, trombone.
It's a wonderful tune. And, you know, I wanted to mention that how we're doing this phoner in the background, you were still coming in, and I didn't want to interrupt. It was kind of like meant to be because you were sounding like you were singing the words to the song. And I don't know if there is lyrics, but it sounded like you were singing to it. You were right.
Yeah, we have the competition between us to see who can sing the most of each person's solo.
Yeah, sorry, we didn't realize we were still on the air.
Yeah, I was.
No.
I was so hoping. Had my fingers crossed. Please don't say any F-bombs or anything.
Oh no!
No,
You know.
Lord,
But
no.
then it was so beautiful the way you were singing. It's like, well, I'm going to let it go. But yeah, so it worked out wonderful. And I want you to mention a little history on that song because why was it that you came about to write a song about a Japanese poet from that many years ago? What turned you on to even think about that?
Sure. Well, I wanted to write a composition that was a tribute to a woman in history who had contributed significantly to the development of art, but who didn't maybe get as much recognition as a male artist. You know, everyone knows who Shakespeare is, but no one knows who Lady Murasaki Shikibu is, and she's really the one who pioneered the format of the novel. And so when I wanted to write a song that was a tribute to an unsung female artist, she immediately came to mind. And I think we started the record with that particular composition because it harkens back to tradition in terms of harkening back to this ancient poetess, but also just in some of the orchestration that it uses. And yet it still is a positive and relevant social message for today's society.
Wow, that's very interesting. And And I know her art is amazing because we studied it in our Asian art course, and I pulled it, like I was saying, out of my textbook and look at. I mean, how many years ago was that she was alive?
1100s?
She was in the 11th century.
11th century. Oh my gosh!
Mm-hmm.
And for them to be able to keep that artwork intact that much, it's amazing.
Right,
and
right.
Testament to how great she was at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a pretty long song for us to be playing with us talking about and having you on the phone in the background. So I don't know what you suggest, Darn.
And it's the shortest, isn't it?
Anthem of the 99%, which is the last song on the album,
Yeah.
is pretty short.
Yeah.
And if you'd like us to refrain from commenting, we'll be
Yeah.
silent for this one.
Well, I don't mind if it's actually beautiful if you want to sing along. I don't care. It's fine with me.
Something follow the bouncing ball.
Yeah. So,
yeah, Anthem of the 99% is probably the shortest tune on the record if we're pressed for time.
well, we're not pressed for time at all, but I do want to back up and say that we do now have our guest co-host with us. Good evening, Kat.
Hi there. How are y'all doing?
Pretty well. How are you? How about
Awesome.
yourself?
Awesome. I was just reading your CD. This is killer. This is really, really cool.
Thanks.
I love this. I
Thanks
can't
so
wait to
much.
hear it. Yeah, this is great. I love this. I mean, but you're right. I mean, everybody knows who Shakespeare is, but, these amazing women that have been around forever don't get the recognition that they deserve, I mean, just a prime example. Yeah, very cool. I
Well,
can't
thank
wait.
you. Yeah.
And do you want to go ahead and introduce each of yourselves and talk a little bit about you and your background, what you do, and then we can get more into what the collective's all about, and then we'll go to a song. How about that?
Most certainly. Hannah, you want to lead it off?
Okay. Well, my name is Hannah Fidler, and I am the bassist and the vocalist and one of the composers for the Liberation Music Collective. And I'm a senior at the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music, studying jazz bass and neuroscience. And I'm Matt.
And I'm Matt Riggen. I'm also a senior at the Jacobs School of Music, studying trumpet, focus on jazz studies, and biology. And I am the trumpeter, cornetist, flugelhornist, and one of the composers for Liberation Music Collective.
Super.
Awesome. So the main question I ask a lot of the musicians that I work with, your main inspiration and how old were you that you both of you took up the instruments that you play, and obviously very passionate about it. So what was the deciding factor that this is what you want to do? Who was your influence?
Well, for me, the reason I play trumpet is because I knew my dad had his from when he was my age out in the garage.
Very cool. That's awesome.
For whatever reason, I wanted to do that. I mean, now with some retrospect, I recognize that if I wanted to be like that, I would have gained 50 pounds and played football as a linebacker. But I can't make decisions for sixth grade Matt Riggen. And music was always something that I was all right at, but it was always on the back burner for one reason or another, and I also really struggled with the instrument. So I came to Indiana University as a biologist and gradually got better at the instrument and made my way into becoming a full-fledged jazz major. But the whole time I was leading groups of one kind or another. And I think Hannah was the first bassist I ever hired for anything.
I think that's true, actually, yeah.
And, what about you? I don't know why you put bass.
So I actually was trained for most of my childhood in classical instruments, classical piano. I did some harpsichord, a little bit of Baroque recorder, so I was very much in the classical world. But when I started high school as a freshman, you couldn't play any of those instruments in a high school group, at the school. Right. And also, music was kind of secondary for me at that point. I was a ballet dancer, and I was training professionally to be a ballet dancer. But I went through a number of very serious injuries and was diagnosed with a very rare genetic disease that made me unable to dance ballet anymore. And so I threw myself into this jazz music that I could play at my high school ensemble. So that's kind of how I got into it. And the bass was just kind of by fluke. I was looking for an instrument to pick up, and the band director said, "Well, you're tall. You should pick up the bass."
Right,
So
right.
that's my story with that.
Well, you're both. Well, then you both are artists from way back. So I mean, it's always been in your blood. So that's very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I have a. My ex-husband was a bass player. He still is. He's an idiot. He's a lawyer, but he's a great bass player. I mean, insane. And he has a stand-up bass like yours. It's an antique. It's about 30 years old, and I just love the sound of it. It's just got such a sound. I mean, all basses are different, but I mean, this one's just. And he has a fretless bass. If you've ever played one of those, it cries.
Yeah,
it literally
they're
will
wild.
cry. Oh my gosh, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he only orders now the regular electric bass that he plays. He only orders the Federo basses. If you know anything about, do you know anything about the Federo basses?
I have never played one myself, but I hear really good things about them.
Oh my! They're made from. It's a family. The Federo family, and they're in New Jersey. So when you talk to them on the phone, it's the stereotypical. It's hilarious. It's almost like a cartoon listening to them talk with the with the accent, so they say, or we have an accent. I don't know. Anyway, and you literally go on their website and you pick out the wood, you pick out everything that you want on your bass, 4-string, 5-string, whatever, left-handed, right-handed, the headstock, everything. I mean, they've got so many choices. And once you put the order in, it's 9 months later, just like a baby, and you have to name it. You literally have to name it all the Federo basses have a name. So, yeah, I don't know why, but that's just how they operate. But they're very, very, they're awesome. I mean, they are so sound, and each bass has a most unique sound, but they're all good. And these guys know what they're doing. It's crazy. Unfortunately, they're extremely pricey. I think the minimum on one is like 10 grand. So, yeah. So they're very, very cool. And what's really hilarious is that my ex-husband has the only taste he has is in his mouth. And the last bass he ordered from them, which is third one, it was horrible. It looked like a train wreck. It had a great sound though. So he sent it back after I picked out what it should have looked like. And my name is in ivory on the headstock. And guess what? I divorced him like 3 years ago, and he still plays that bass. Their basses are just insane. Just the sound is just incredible. Like I can't even tell you. But you might want to just check it out, just to if you're curious. But yeah, they're very, very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
that sounds like a really neat operation they've got out there.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. You could just call and talk to them, and they'll give you all kinds of information. And even if you have any issues with, just for instance, he was going to put new strings on his upright, and he didn't know what he was doing, and he called him, and they walked him right through it. I mean, just yeah, very, very
That's
cool.
nice.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Hey, now to switch back to Matt on trumpet. Now, when you said about the garage, was there a reason why it was out in the garage? Was it like the rest of the family was saying, "Hey, go out in the garage and"?
Well, Dad was he's a hobbyist, more or less.
Really?
And he quit. Yeah, he quit when he was about like 13, 14. But for whatever reason, he never got rid of it. Like he moved halfway across the state from his parents. I'm one of the extant Riggens in the States. All the rest of my extended family kind of lives in the west portion of the state, pretty close to Clinton and Dana and places like that. And my dad just up and moved to Indianapolis, one, because he got training as a computer technician about the age when that started becoming something you could really make a lot of money doing. You need to move to a city to really make money with that. But even through that huge move, he kept the horn,
Right.
which I've never asked him about why he would do that, but I kind of understand at some level too. I mean, obviously, why you wouldn't want to.
Yeah, you don't want to throw that away. You really don't. And I bet. Have you ever heard Doc Severinsen?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that guy was insane. I'm sure that he may have been a little bit of influence on your dad. I mean,
no, Doc.
I mean, yeah.
Doc's still alive.
But I mean,
Doc is still alive.
Is he
Yes.
really?
Yeah.
No kidding. I didn't know that. I had no idea. Well, yeah, he's just great. The first time I heard him outside of Johnny Carson, I said, "Oh my gosh, he really is a great musician." Because it was always just laugh and giggle, on the show. But yeah, he's awesome. He is awesome. And
the
Chuck,
thing that gets you,
Mhm.
the thing that gets you about Doc Severinsen
Mhm.
is his discipline.
Oh yeah.
Because with trumpet, it's an instrument that demands like a commitment. Trumpet is a jealous girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
you got to spend time with every day, or something, or it's going to ruin your life. That's the that's the
That is
trade-off.
funny you say that. When I was in band, that's what the trumpet players in band would say too. I mean, because it's just one of those instruments, you know. Yeah, you do. It's just one of those things. They always said they felt like they were never good enough because it was just
Yeah,
constant practice.
And that's the thing that gets you about Doc.
Mm-hmm.
That he's had a playing career as a stellar musician for over a half a century at least, like one of the top in the field of something that tends to trip you up
Right.
just by the nature of it.
Yep.
That's nuts. That's nobody
killer.
else really can do that.
And who was right behind him was a few years later, Chuck Mangione. And look
Oh,
at that
yeah.
guy. That guy was, wow, he had a whole different level in regards to his playing and his style and everything else. But it's right there. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just as, you can just see it on their face when they play. It's just so intense.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
thing about Chuck Mangione people don't really realize
Mhm.
is that Chuck's super legit. Like, there can be a thing in, like, the academic, I guess you could say, like, secluded jazz world where it's like, oh, well, that's a straight eighth note, so clearly the guy. Chuck Mangione was a jazz messenger.
Mhm.
Chuck Mangione is completely, you can't just pick up the horn and play the things
No.
that he's playing without putting a lot of time into figuring it out. So I've got nothing but the utmost respect for those guys, even though I don't choose to play like them.
Right.
'Cause I know it's hard.
Oh, yeah.
What about Al Hurt?
You know, that's actually, man, I haven't thought about Al Hurt in years, but that was one of the few players that my grandma, who came over from England, would listen to.
Wow.
You know,
Mhm.
that was one of the
Yeah.
few trumpet players, and I inherited her record collection after she died. It's just blocks of Al Hurt.
Wow.
Oh, good.
You know, like Honey and the Horn and things like that. And, like, Al Hurt's technique is, again, spectacular. You know, and just because he plays sweetly and has an orchestra behind him doesn't mean he doesn't know exactly what he's doing all of the time.
Right. So do you play along with him at home?
I haven't played along with Al Hurt, but I have learned several solos from other players. Like, Miles is one of my guys forever.
Well, you know,
and ever.
let me say something about Miles Davis.
Oh.
We just unveiled a life-size statue of him. I believe it's the only statue of him in the world over in Alton this past weekend. Did you
I
hear?
have heard about that.
Did you hear about
I heard
that?
I heard about that through the grapevine, and by the grapevine I mean the internet.
Yeah.
I was going to go to the unveiling, but there was something else happening. I wanted to go so bad, but I'm going to make it over there soon anyway. You were over in Alton, weren't you?
No, I wasn't in Alton.
Oh,
I don't remember where I was.
you were
Really? That was a couple
some-
days ago. I think I
there was-
slept.
There was some concert that you were at.
Oh, I know. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, so it's going to be one of the wonders of the world now because it'll be the only one.
Well, and actually, you know, there's a little bit of a debate on the proper location of that. And he was born in Alton, but he only was there for a little bit. And a lot of people over in East St. Louis are saying, hey, the
Should have been
statue
here.
belongs
Right.
in East St. Louis,
Right.
not in Alton.
Definitely.
Yeah, I could see that most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's something that happened with Bird too. In case you didn't, because Bird's spiritual home was always,
Charlie Parker?
yeah, Charlie Parker.
Oh,
Sorry, I've
That's
I've
a-
been in jazz
you-
schools for 5 years.
you call him Bird?
Yeah, Bird.
Yeah, I knew who you were talking about, but I want to make sure everybody knew Charlie Parker, yeah. I love Scrapple with the
Charlie Parker.
Apple.
Yeah, Charlie Parker's spiritual home is Kansas City, and that's where he even requested that he was buried. But for whatever reason, he is interred in New York. And I'm sure that I'm
What?
completely wrong, and that went out in the air forever.
Wow.
But no,
Well, I think you're correct. I think you're right about that. There was some debate amongst his widows where he would be buried, and I think one of them eventually won out, and it was
yeah, it was New York.
Yeah.
Well, isn't
that
that the place where every year at his birthday or whatever, a bunch of the jazz musicians gather around his grave and they have a jam? I think that's Charlie
could see
Parker.
I wouldn't be surprised.
that would be
Yeah, it's
something
in
we would
Kansas
do.
City
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty sure that's it. Yeah. Because I love Charlie Parker music.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Now
is,
it's great that
I'm
we're
not-
talking about all these greats because I know I sense in listening to your music that you've been inspired from some of the greats. You know, Hannah, I'm sure you like Mingus or what was that super bass player? Was it Mingus? Charlie Mingus?
Yeah, Charles Mingus.
Yeah.
Definitely influenced by Charles Mingus. And Charlie
Charlie
Hayden,
Wooten?
too.
Charlie
He's
Wooten?
the
Mingus.
Charlie Hayden, who
Oh,
started
Hayden.
the Liberation Music Orchestra before us. He's definitely an influence as well.
Charlie Hayden was the only person I didn't know who I cried when he died, or like the first at least. I'm 22. There's probably more time to do something like that. But you know, you always felt like Charlie Hayden knew you, like he was a friend or like an uncle or something like that.
Mm.
And the Liberation Music Orchestra that he started is probably the most direct spiritual predecessor of our collective.
Yeah, interesting. I was kind of heading in that direction on how did you come about putting this collective together. So can you back up and say that again? What was it? Sometimes it takes a couple times for me to hear something for it to sink in.
Sure. Well, what I just said was that the Liberation Music Orchestra, founded by Charlie Hayden and Carla Bley, is probably the most direct spiritual predecessor of our collective. But Matt, if you want to talk a little bit about how you got the idea for the collective, that'd be great.
Most definitely. Ferguson really bothered me.
Thank you.
Really,
Well, you know, it really
oh my
bothered
gosh.
us a lot. We're
It's
a
ridiculous.
stone's throw away from it right here where we're sitting.
Yeah,
It's the whole
that
thing was just wrong
yeah.
on both sides.
It really bothered me because, from what I understand, a non-indictment basically is a judge or some agency of the government saying that we don't have the time to decide whether you're guilty or not. It's such a non-issue that we're not even let it get to that point. You're off the hook.
Yeah.
And in a situation like that, where it's clearly two embattled cultures, like the police culture against, you know, the people that they're supposed to be protecting and representing,
Right.
you have to respect that. You have to respect that this is not a situation where you get to do that, especially when the whole country is looking at you and waiting for you to do the right thing, you know? And the wonderful thing about the internet, which of course I spend all my time on, is that nobody controls the narrative anymore.
No.
So like before, there's like newspapers or like news stations. You can have a certain group of people controlling what information goes where.
Right. Yeah.
But when everyone has a camera on their phone and access to a place where they can put up in front of everyone,
Right.
immediately, suddenly there becomes a lot of narrative.
Oh, yeah, the whole story
Well-
changes.
Well, the whole thing was, I believe the whole thing was wrong on both sides, and that it got so out of control on both sides. We reverted back how many years? We went back so many years. We took so many steps backwards into the old 60s and the whole, I mean, it became a race thing. And I thought it was just so sad and pitiful that nobody was even paying attention. It was all, everybody's taking sides and the wrong sides, or, you know, it's just, it was just wrong from the get-go on all sides, I believe, how it was handled, executed, whatever. It's still, people are still hurting over it. And we just, how many years did we go back? How many? Wow. I mean, it's really, really
that's
sad.
That's what got me.
Yeah. Isn't that
That's what got
pitiful?
me, the
Yeah.
idea
We're supposed
that
to be
we
evolved.
should be over this by now.
Yeah, we should be. But,
You know?
I mean, even the year anniversary, they had issues here around here in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was
Well,
crazy.
you can see all the people who have died at police hands even since Ferguson. So it's clearly not over for us as a country. We still clearly have so many issues, deep structural issues with this type of violence.
It's insane.
And-
I just can't even believe it. I mean, wow. But that's just not the way.
And so it bothering me
Mm-hmm.
precluded a reaction. Like I needed to, and I'd known Hannah for years, and I'd known that she was particularly strong, not only as a writer and player, but a writer and player about things like this.
Mm-hmm.
And in this direction, like this was a huge motivator behind her creative work. And so I called her literally as soon as I had the idea, within the same 5 minutes. You know.
Wow.
Yeah, so when Matt pitched his idea of creating a jazz big band that commented upon social issues, I got very, very excited because I had written some compositions in the past that had a social justice bent to them, and I had also just done a lot of work as an activist outside the music world. And I felt that we could really fill a niche that wasn't being filled in the jazz world at the moment. You know, there's such a long history of provocative protest music in jazz, but it's kind of been lost, I think, in our generation, and especially in the big band format. And so I was very excited for the opportunity to really speak in a moving way about these issues, but also to bring jazz back into the sound of socially provocative music in the 21st century.
And that's the significance behind the title Siglo 21,
Right.
21st century in Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
which harkens to another mode of philosophy that Hannah holds very dear.
Yep.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I can't wait to listen to this whole
Now,
CD.
yeah, now the black and red song ties in pretty much with what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Is
Yep.
that
Black and red is
was that the main song that kind of started putting some meat on the bones on the CD?
That was the first song that I wrote specifically for this album.
Oh, okay.
And it's based around a poem that I had written even before Matt had ever contacted me about this project. I wrote a poem which I called Black and Red, you know, when the non-indictment happened, when Eric Garner died too. So I wrote that poem, and then he contacted me about the ensemble, and we were trying to figure out what compositions we should do, and Black and Red, the song, grew out of that.
Maybe we should play that song. It's a 7-minute song. I don't know. Maybe this is not the right time to be playing songs while we got you live on the phone.
I know.
What do you think? You do a lot more interviews than me. Rather than tie them up on the phone, we should keep talking. Or do you want to? I know sometimes people want to hear music, then they walk by and say, "Hey, can you stop yakking and put on some music?" You know.
If you guys are, if you guys are cool with it, let's play the anthem of the 99%, and you guys take a break and come back. How about that? Is that all right?
most def.
All right.
And you can give us a little insight on the song after we listen to it.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, go ahead and play Anthem of the 99%.
Let's do that one.
Okay. So here we go.
One palm and me outside these walls, we take the blame and take their fall. We're made to scrape and scratch and crawl and starve our lives. We brought it, take it's all for you, for you, for you, my friends and
Wow, beautiful.
Very, very cool. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Is that all you, Hannah, singing?
That is me singing.
Oh my gosh, voice of an angel. So,
Oh, thank
how
you.
long have you been singing? Since you were a kid?
I've been singing my whole life. I have a sister, and my mother and my sister and I all used to sing all day while we were working or playing. So
Very, very
I
nice.
sing in background.
Very cool.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
that was beautiful. Now,
Thank you.
what's explain about the 99%? Your viewpoints on that.
Well, if there's one thing that I could take away from doing this project is that more of us not only can do more than just one of us, it's a gestalt, you know?
Yep.
And with gestalts, they are, by definition, more than the sum of their parts. So there are 14 people in the room, but if we all put our minds to it, to one thing, then it's not the sum of 14 individual actions. It is a single powerful thing that can make more change than we ever hoped.
And I also think the Occupy movement and the whole concept of the 99% has been something that's been new to our generation. It's one of our generation's protest movements, and I think that inspiration combined with this idea that we're more powerful when we come together as collectives and do things in community really inspired the piece.
Occupy, for me, means making things better for each other because we deserve it. You know,
Yep.
one of the extant Occupy things is a debt absolution program where people just pool their money together to buy blocks of other people's debt and then just erase it. Like student loans just gone. Or like a mortgage that you took out just gone.
Kind of like, is it?
That's nuts.
What is it?
It's incredible.
I'm not sure which is it, the Amish or the Mennonites that share? They have no debt. They share everything. Which?
Yeah, I think both communities have a system like that.
Right. And
Yeah,
they,
just taking
they take
Sorry,
care
go
of
ahead.
each other. Yeah, they take care of each other.
Right.
You know, they build houses together. They build barns together. They farm together. Everything it's one community. You know, and it's people. You know, they
Is it the same
scoff at that,
concept
yeah.
as the commune?
well.
Different.
I think it would be more modern. It's not just a commune, because when you just say commune, it's like more. It is very what's the word I'm looking for? Confined. It is a very confined thing, but you know, it's a great concept. It's a great idea. Why not? I mean, Canada.
I always say
Yeah, go ahead.
I always say that if you want something done, do it yourself. But if you want something to last, do it in community.
Right. Or it takes a village. What's that? It
That's
takes a village to raise a child, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, wow. What an idea. Why can't we do it? Why can't we all just get along? You know, so
Right.
it's just, you know, I am from St. Louis, and I moved to Memphis when I got married back in the early 80s. And I raised my kids down there. And when my kids were young, I raised my kids, it's like I told them, I said, I raised them like they were blind. So they got that. They understood that. And then the first day one of the days they were at school, they came home they cut classes early and sent everybody home because there was, quote unquote, a race riot at school between what they called a black and a white kid. Now, my kids were 8 and 5 at the time. And when they came home from school, they were confused. They didn't understand who the black kids were because they didn't know. They never saw. They know their colors. And when I had explained to them exactly what was going on in the real world, I mean, they were just dumbfounded. because there were brown people, there were peach people, there were orange people, there were yellow people, just like out of a crayon box. It was just, to them, it was just, they were all one color, and it was probably one of the hardest days of my life to explain to them that there is that kind of behavior and hatred out there, and it was really, really, really tough. But to this day, thank goodness, they got it to the point where they understood where there is no color. Everybody is the same. It doesn't matter. But
yeah,
I
but
think that go for it, Stephen.
well, I might have been getting off the track though, because I was going back to the 99% thing and the Occupy. It seemed like there was a lot of that Occupy stuff going on, and did it seem like it died down, or am I not seeing it on the news?
You're not wrong. Active Occupy groups have been steadily dwindling since the movement. I've got a friend down in New Orleans who's part of like one of the last active Occupy groups, and they're the ones who I know who are active in the Student Debt Absolution program. But the thing about something like that is making things better collectively requires a collective commitment.
yes.
Like, you got to be willing to throw yourself at it, and if you break against it, then
Well, what was the big one was about against the banks and all that, wasn't it? The money.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I do think the Occupy movement has changed the landscape of our political lexicon. I mean, the word occupy, the whole concept of the 1% and the 99% is now all in common usage, and every politician now has to reconcile him or herself with the 1% or the 99% and has to reconcile to the public who's now entrenched in these ideas that, common people have been screwed over in a lot of ways, and that we collectively as a society should take better care of each other.
Exactly.
So I think despite the fact that there are not as many active Occupy protesters or, groups going on, it has changed the landscape in a way that's noticeable.
yeah, perhaps when we look back in 10, 15 years, get some history behind us, we will find that Occupy's main impact was not in the direct action of the Occupy groups, but in changing the way we saw politics forever.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and that's as long as we are in these different classifications regarding income, that's our biggest fight right there. Where, like I went back to the Mennonites or the, they have no classification. It's all the same. Everybody is the same in regards to that. There are no hierarchies or I have more money, I have more power kind of thing, and no politicians or any of that BS. Which is what I call it, because as long as those politicians are there collecting all that money they should not be collecting. Don't get me started.
I mean,
I am. Oh yeah, I'm ready to get on my soapbox.
You got to recognize too that being a senator or being in government office was supposed to be something that you did in addition to your work.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like you would
like a volunteer fireman.
Yeah.
Like a
More or less.
volunteer fireman. It was supposed to be an honor, and you're helping, and it was what it was supposed to be, not a full-time consuming job where you're getting all the money and all this and all that. It was supposed to be, like a volunteer fireman. I mean,
Right.
So,
Well, campaign finance reform was not as glamorous of a song name as
mhm.
Yeah, it sounds like there are a lot of issues on the album that are near and dear to lots of people's hearts at this point in time in our country.
Mhm.
Oh,
the overall response we get is that that people were waiting for it, even if they didn't know exactly, weren't able to put to words like, I would like a social justice big band in my ears.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and exactly how this came out, I was one of the persons that was waiting for this. And when I saw this, I was like, oh my God. I've gone down into Ferguson with these group meetings and stuff, and there's been a whole bunch of people come together to voice their, want to be heard about what's going on justice and all this. And I think we should put a stack of these CDs out somewhere to let people hear this, because this music is very soothing, good, makes you feel good, and it's like you were saying in I don't know where I either heard it or what. It's like you can meditate to it. It makes you feel good after you hear it. It kind of makes you understand problems better, you know?
Soothe the savage beast sort of thing.
I think maybe
David,
so.
yeah.
You know, music is a whole nother kind of language, you know? And
It really is.
And you really are speaking out on this album here.
It's not just the
Well,
music.
thank you.
It's all artists. I believe all artists. And how many? I mean, we're still fighting that regarding some of the bureaucrats with, they used to cut art out of schools.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no sports, no music, or just keep the sports
Well-
and no music, no, any kind of art. And I think that's our biggest battle right now is between the bureaucrats and the artists. Those two groups. Yeah.
Well, the thing about art is that you can't staticize it.
Exactly.
Like Hannah and I both know that with science, you can put numbers on it and see objectively, look, this is helping people because
Sure.
numbers say so, and the line on the graph moves up.
Sure.
Art, you can't really do that, or you can, but it's a lot more indirect.
Right.
So
Art stirs empathy or makes you consider a narrative that's different than your own or acts as some kind of catharsis to work through something or introduces you to ideas that you've never heard before. So I think it is a mistake for us as a nation to underestimate the power of art.
It's part of being a well-balanced person. You have to have a little bit of everything, and be
Right.
open-minded.
And a well-balanced civilization.
Yeah, exactly. It can't just be one thing against another because, how boring would that be? I mean, wow. I can't imagine. No music.
Well,
Yeah.
well, then let me ask you, what is the plan for your music to be heard to get this to everybody? I mean, has anybody got you on media-wise? I'm not saying that you should be on the Stephen Colbert show or whatever, but I'm wondering if you should go nationwide with this,
Well, Kate Smith has been kind enough to send the record to many people everywhere. Like the record's being played in Brazil, I know,
Right.
Spain,
Globally, yeah. And we've got good, very, very good press and radio promotions people. And one of the other exciting things that we have to announce is that the man who wrote our press release, Neil Tester, who's a Grammy Award winner for his liner notes on Afro Blue Impressions, has submitted our record to the nominations committee for Grammy consideration.
Oh,
Very
great.
cool.
We're
Yeah,
very excited about
congratulations.
that as well.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
That is awesome.
Now,
No,
this weekend coming up, you've got some kind of event coming up, isn't it? Something?
We most certainly do. The beauty of funding a thing with grant money is that sometimes you have to spend the whole budget. And to that end, we had somebody film, and we've